The two Jills, a psychologist and psychic intuitive, reveal mind-blowing insights that turn psychology, self-help, and conscious teachings on their heads. Why? Because they work. Real help, sincere growth is here. Welcome to Psyched.
Hello, Jill.
Hi, Jill.
I'm very excited to be back on Psych today. And I think that we've come up with a really, kind of interesting topic for this week. I like all our topics, obviously, or wouldn't talk about them. But just to cue it up a little bit, like right now, I call this if you see something, say something. And a lot of times you see that on the subway, and it's like if you see a package or it's in an airport, and there's always a negativity to it. But I think we want to bring it into the more positive light. If you see something, say something, like in a good way. And I've been noticing a lot where there's a reticence for whatever reason, and we'll discuss some of the reasons, of people to offer kindnesses or compliments or the things that they notice about other people to the actual person. It's often, I hear people coming to me and complimenting someone else. And my feeling always is, why are you saying that really super nice thing about that other person to me? And I always asked, I'm like, did you say that to them? And they're like, well, no, but, and then it kind of, that whole beautiful opportunity gets lost. And so, maybe with this conversation, we can just put it back on people's radars. People know this, but sometimes in life we're moving too fast and we forget to just take that time to say that nice thought or, compliment, whatever it is. So that's the impetus behind today's conversation. So what are your thoughts on if you see something, say something? Like, what does that bring up for you?
I do this myself, and it's funny because my family and other people that I might be hanging out with kind of look at me like, what is she doing? Right. But obviously now my family, I don't surprise, they get me. They're not surprised by anything I do now. But I am one of those people that, even if we're, getting takeout food or something, and I just notice people, right? And when I get an I like you kind of vibe, there is a part of me on my best days that wants to find something about them that I can specify and mention to them, right? So it might be, oh my God, you have the most amazing eyes, or, oh, your hair, wow. You know what I mean? You have beautiful hair. And what I find for so many individuals, because these are obviously strangers, right, that I'm saying this to in this instance, they stop, right? I feel like it helps them be present, right? Whatever may have whatever potential looped program may have been going on in their brain, or just like, oh my God, did I do that order right? Or whatever, is this person going to yell at me? Whatever. It almost like these beautiful breaks of just like, thank you, right? Like, wow, thank you. You can feel that they feel it. Now, do they feel it more sincere because it is someone like you or I or somebody that's in, a listener here? Possibly, right? Because I think people can intuitively sense that we have no alternative agenda, right? We're not a creepy person trying to scam them, or a creepy, sexual offender. I mean, it's very innocent, and it's just received so beautifully. So I love to do this. I love to receive these. It's such a surprise, and it does. And I do let it affect me. I allow it to affect me positively when I'm gay. We eat out a lot, I have to admit. And somebody says, oh my God, you're just like, wow, you in this car and your look today, just like, you're gorgeous. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Okay, hand me my chicken sandwich and let me get out of here. I gotta go, but I do kind of like, hey, like I put myself together today, right? Anyway, so I know it may seem superficial and some people won't feel this, and I'm okay with that, but I just don't want to underestimate that this is a really, really hard reality. There are so many hard days and hard moments in life, and it doesn't take much to lift someone up with the most, innocent, superficially sounding comment to help them have a better day.
Yeah. And I love what you said sort of in the beginning. You're saying how you see someone and you're actually looking for, like, you're already primed to want to be able to do that. And I think that that's like, almost stage 2, is like having the intent to go out that way, like I aspire to that. And I think that, let me put it this way, I think that is something to aspire to, to always be like, we're focused, and we've talked about putting good energy out there. People do want to bring them their best selves, but there is still, to your point, a lot of distracting dialogue that's going on in there, which doesn't have us outwardly focused a lot of times. And the outward is more of an impingement than a noticing, right? And so it does pull you out, and it can pull the other person out. And truthfully, when I say things to people, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes people are like, okay. But, at other times when something comes out of my mouth, to another person, they'll turn around and be like, that just made my day. You just made my day. Like a perfect stranger is saying that. It's like, that is just the warmest feeling, to just have that momentary interaction and whatever is going on in these two strangers' day. But I appreciate people's fashion. I think, oh my gosh, they took the time to put that outfit together. They did that. And then to have it noticed, which is the point in a lot. I mean, we dress for ourselves, yes, but to then have that noticed, that the care you put into it, it just elevates. It really does. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. It takes nothing from you. Like, this is the easiest way to brighten your day and brighten someone else's day. And I'm just saying, like you said, just have it at top of mind. Have it like, who can I compliment today? Where can I compliment today? It's just such a much better mindset than, how do I check off my to-do list? Because in that way, everybody's in your way, and you're not looking at those people in an open way, a ready for compliments way.
It's a win-win too.
Yes.
We've had, think of some of the other episodes that we've had on the Psych podcast about those that are more fear-based, those that are focused on insecurity. Your brain, I would venture to say you have more expertise than I do, Jill, but in terms of can the brain be insecure and looking for things to compliment another person about at the same time? I would say no, right? So it kind of breaks our maybe own chain of self-sabotage as well. But I am one of those optimistic people. I am definitely a glass half full person. So maybe it is easier for me. But I know that when I get sort of positive feedback or positive, unsolicited comments from somebody that is more a natural skeptic, glass half empty person, it means even more. If I do know them, like, oh, I know that isn't normally how your brain is wired. So thank you. You know what I mean? It's just, so I think it's a win-win for both sides.
I agree. I think, for a long time, I was very hesitant to receive compliments, right? And compliments are gifts, and it's not kind to, be like, yeah, I don't want that, right? So there is something that you have to allow in yourself also. If compliments are coming your way and you're deflecting them, that's something to work on, right? You want to be able to receive those compliments. There's just a freedom in not having, it's not humble in my opinion to deny a compliment, because it misunderstands what a compliment is, right? And I think a compliment, when somebody takes the time to notice something about you and comment on it, that is a gift to be received. And when you do start, at least for me, when I started to receiving gifts rather than fighting with the people, literally fighting with the people who were giving them to me, and even thinking like, oh, you don't know me so well, if you really knew me, like making a joke out of it. Now I just say, that was so nice. Thank you. It's, again, so simple to receive a compliment. And a lot of us don't allow ourselves that simple pleasure, right? And I don't even care what the reason is, just stop, right? Like, I don't care what your excuse is for not receiving a compliment. Next time somebody says something to you, just practice saying, that was really nice. Thank you. I got that right here, and honestly, because that's the idea that giving is receiving. Right. So when you receive a compliment, that other person feels good. When you give a present at Christmas and the other person, whatever holiday, and the other person is like, oh my God, I love this. That's your gift in return. Right. And it's a reciprocity here. So don't slam the door on it. It's a
Beautiful. I totally know what that feels like too, to sort of almost like reject a compliment. Like if somebody complimented me on something about the way I looked and I knew I literally just crawled out of bed, I am definitely not going to go, yeah, thanks. I'm going to go, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to make a joke out of it like you are. Like, do you have funny glasses on? Can you get bad eyesight? Because my brain does go into, I didn't work at this, so I'm not worthy of a compliment. So I own that in my own kind of flawed receiving side. Let's tee up some of the reasons that maybe somebody refrains or restrains their positivity and their compliments, because there's probably a lot of little layers there. Maybe your friend, right, that told you something positive about another person, but for various probably thoughtful reasons, they didn't say it to the other person. I can think of a lot of layers here. One that I was just thinking of is, it can feel cheesy. And some people are just like, oh, it just sounds so weird to say, you look absolutely gorgeous today. Or I love the sound of your voice. When you talk, I just, you know what I mean? Or anything. Whenever I'm at your home, it feels so warm and cozy in here. It feels so fresh and clean. I love your spaces. Any kind of compliment. It can feel cheesy. And some people are so busy being authentic, but the thing is, it is inauthentic. If you were thinking those positive things, then it's not cheesy, right? If you're lying about something you're saying that's positive, that's cheesy. But if it was a sincere, like, oh, I love it. Every time I'm at her place, or every time I visit her office, I just feel the sense of calm and order and thoughtfulness. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to tap into that positive with it being very authentic.
In a lot of ways, I do feel like we think these things, so. And what we're trying to do with all of these podcasts is make you more aware of your thoughts. A lot of times we are actually thinking nice things about someone as they're speaking to us or interacting with us. We're not horrible people. We have good thoughts too. Right. And so we want to capitalize on what you're already thinking. And if you just tune in when somebody's like, it happened a lot with my kids and their teachers. Every once in a while, they would get a phenomenal teacher and they would come home and they'd say, Mom, this guy, I finally understand what it is to learn. Or I finally, these were not little things my kids were talking about. And I'm just like, I'm not your audience. Get out there. These teachers especially get so much garbage, from kids so much of the time, and so many complaints from parents, If you see something that's so like real like that, share that with them. And they've either started to write notes to their teachers, or now every so often we're getting it with the boss, and I'm like, reflect back on how lovely that is. But these are things they're naturally thinking. And so that's what I want us to see that in ourselves, our natural kindnesses that are already there. And, just to back up, if they're not there and what's standing in the way, and I had this when my insecurity is flaring, and I'm looking at someone else, I'm in a more negative space. I'm noticing something nice about them, but I'm using it to put me down. And that's something to be aware of, because it almost is it's a form of jealousy, right? So if you give someone a compliment in that way, it does say something bad about you if you're in that mindset. And so in those moments, it could feel painful to notice someone's beauty when you're feeling so unbeautiful, right? And that does inhibit compliments. Our insecurity stops us from just purely appreciating, and we get into this self-reflect. What does that mean? What does their beauty mean about me? What does their skill mean about me? And so to watch that, because it's almost like the brain is hijacking your natural goodness of noticing something, and then it's taking it and turning it back on you in a negative way. So again, you have that natural desire even to notice and appreciate and even compliment, but somehow the brain has flipped it. That's something to pay attention to.
So true. And it's interesting because it's self-sabotaging, isn't it? Because the part of self that is insecure, that doesn't feel good, right, deprives itself from doing something good and acting in a way that's good, of expressing something positive.
And it compounds. Right. Yeah. So that is a really problematic cycle, because the way you and I are talking is like, to get even yourself out of a bad cycle, you would want to be putting goodness out, but you can't if there's backlash, right? If you allow the brain to hijack it and use it against you, right? Mm-hmm. So these do tend to be very alienating spirals where, and I've been caught in this, where I just was sort of looking at someone in my mind, appreciating it, but also having that negative dialogue about what it means to me. And then having them be like, what are you looking at? Because you're just kind of, this is all going on inside. Right. So it can compound, you get locked deeper in these negative, where there's so much beauty out there. And if you're noticing it and you're in a negative cycle, that could just be a really bad day, So just something to be aware of. The brain does this shit. It does.
It totally does. I'm wanting to reflect on what you were saying earlier about the positive ideas, even if it's comparative and potentially fostering jealousy, the positivity is there. I feel like what we're describing is letting those layers of positivity be more conscious and be more present within yourself, so that you possibly can act more upon it for the benefit of the other. And we're also saying for the benefit of you, that it gets you in another rhythm that is focused on what is going well in the world, right? To be very grand, right? But there is to love about another person, or appreciate about another person, the beauty in the world, or whatever else you're complimenting, right? Originality, uniqueness. I like how you're independent. The dress code was all white. Here you are in red. There's something pretty badass about that. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to compliment you. I know the host is furious, but I see you. How can we not? You know what I mean? Oh, Anyway, so I can always find something. Because that's my nature. But I do wonder if sometimes there's childhood patterns that can come up here too, where the brain has felt somehow like it didn't go well. Like the brain has some memories in there of, no, I complimented somebody one time and I felt rejected. I felt denied. That person immediately took it as, what do you want? Right. And in possibly not a joking way. I know my husband and I would get going. My kids, our younger one is very cheeky, and she'll come in and go, you guys, the best parents ever. She's in a sing-song voice. So we're like, okay, what's coming? You know what I mean? So we aren't rejecting it, but we're like, okay. So we use it in a comical way. But I can imagine there are some Some kids, some adults that as little kids were like, Mommy, I love you, and you're so pretty. And the mom had a hard life or a hard moment and completely swatted that away. And the kid felt like, wow, this feels horrible. I was just trying to do something nice and I'm never complimenting anyone again. And big hugs to anyone that has memories like that.
Yeah. There are so many reasons, honestly, I think, why people don't compliment. I think, there's also, just honestly, like a sense of embarrassment. You're just not sure how another person's going to take it sometimes. And yeah, that's true. We don't know how other people are going to take it. And we would rather maybe not put ourselves out there in that way, potentially to be getting some negative feedback for whatever reason. I do think that still stems from, a lack of getting compliments yourself. If you haven't been on the receiving end of compliments, and to your point, maybe be on the receiving end of a lot of criticism, there might be a hurdle there that you almost have to crawl over first to say, no, criticism is not the norm. Complimenting is the norm. We're in this society so about, culturally bettering ourselves that complimenting seems like it would shut down the process of self-betterment, and criticism has replaced it with the way we interact with one another. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. I'm not a fan of constructive criticism. I'm not a fan of the shit sandwich. You're really good at this, but you suck at that, but I really like you anyway. Like, I can't do all of these things. I just don't. I don't know. What do you think about constructive criticism? What do you think about it?
Is it the appropriate setting? Do you have that relationship with that person? I find it weird when somebody this is the whole online thing, right? A total stranger can just feel completely authorized to give you, and it's not even constructive, but in their brain, it might be, right? Well, she needs to know, like she should have had a nose job a long time ago. You know what I mean? It's just like, should I? Or am I owning it now at 52, right? So it's somebody's opinion that they just, but I feel like in those instances, and I'm sorry if I'm taking it off rail here in this little example, but I do feel like there's a distortion in them, that there's something about them that they needed subconsciously to hurt you, right? And that might be a very, what I call fragmented energy field of hurt and suffering, and hurt and suffering begets hurt and suffering. It wants to hurt. That part of a lot of us wants to hurt others and make other people suffer. So that's something to be aware of. So no, constructive criticism, I feel like it for many distorted individuals is used very recklessly and thoughtlessly and without positive intent. What is the intent of it? And I can feel that. So then I kind of reject it, right? I can feel the intent was negative and it wasn't to help me be my best self or to bring out the best in me and them to bring out the best in themselves. I have a little kind of like do not enter sign. And we've used this expression before, which has served me so well. You can't control who shoots the arrows at you, but you could always control whether it hits your target.
Yeah.
So I feel the arrow and I'm like, not today, Satan.
Yeah. I think that, there's been enough studies now that really do say that positive reinforcement is really the best way to go, that people don't really learn through negativity. So I'm really not sure why constructive criticism is still a thing. I think, you could really just be, when somebody hears criticism, in my opinion, you're taking it, if it doesn't hit your lowest rung, your deepest wound, then you are a strong person, because I just feel like that does take you back to childhood. I don't care. If somebody just says, this is for your own good, I'm doing this for your own good, and then they smack you across the face. I'm not feeling it. I'm just not.
No.
So I don't know about corporate. I don't know how things work nowadays, but I'm not a huge fan of that. But I do think that because people receive a lot of criticism and the compliments, you just feel like you have to work so hard to earn those things, that these kind of casual noticings that you and I are talking about are not front and center. It feels like in order to get a compliment, somebody needs to earn that shit, and I don't feel compliments need to, I don't feel like you have to earn them. I feel like they're just like little, like heart-shaped candies that you're just giving out to strangers and friends and whomever, and keep it light. But I think because of the flip side of compliments is criticism, I think they get, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater here. You don't have to just better your, having just bettered yourself to receive a compliment.
Yeah.
Good job. That's what I was looking for. Finally, you did what I asked. I'm like, oh, geez, that's just, who wants that kind of compliment? Right. That's not. So anyway, there's a lot of distortions here about what compliments are, how they're, because again, I think even with parenting, right? It's like, oh, you did your chores. Thank you. That's not a compliment, right? That's not a noticing that you and I are talking about, right? These are just much more spontaneous, and they're not compliments because you followed a rule or did what was asked of you. Those are not compliments.
Yeah, that's more like gratitude. Just, being gracious and grateful, in my opinion, if we're gonna
maybe that's
up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, I think. Yeah, I
This,
don't know how to go down that road either.
I am aware that there can be instances of some individuals that are almost too complimentary. And it might still be sincere, but at some point it gets uncomfortable, right? So I would love to offer some tips for those individuals that feel like, no, somebody that's listening to this or watching this and can say, no, I'm complimentary all the time. And I feel like it doesn't land well, and it almost like it makes things cringy and uncomfortable. So here's some tips. Observe their reaction. And if it's in a group setting, observe the group, right? If you aren't normally with the group of individuals and you've started with some compliments that we've kind of built up and really we're so excited to share with them, and if for some reason you find them wanting to change the conversation or start to ask you questions, just keep the conversation moving in a different direction, follow that energy, right? Because it can be too much, and it can be just feeling a little bit sort of inappropriate, I guess, in a way, right? But depending on the setting.
Yeah, like
Even what were you saying?
Like obsequious, where it's ingratiating, you don't give compliments to try and ingratiate yourself into a group, or there's no goal here really other than the share. You don't get back popularity. You don't get back, it's not a fishing expedition, where if you compliment someone's outfit, you're waiting for them to compliment yours, right? This is, again, right idea, wrong execution, right? This is giving without needing to get back in any way. That's not even a thought in your mind, that there's something coming to you as a result. It's just a giveaway.
And for somebody that feels like an outsider of a situation that wants to feel like an insider, instead of starting off by sharing or offering, even with a compliment, just, say hello or whatever, and then just pay attention to the rhythm of the conversation of the group that is more a natural part of itself as a group. And you're feeling like maybe you're curious about their interactions, or you want possibly to be more included into their interactions. I think that's a better time to hang back and observe and participate as naturally as possible with the flow and the tenor, the rhythm, the topic of conversation, all of that I feel is much more welcoming that you fit within that setting versus that you don't fit within that setting.
I like that, because you're bringing up, and I, really wasn't on my radar that, because I'm coming from the perspective of, I find myself, if I'm not careful, being stingy with compliments, right? So I really wasn't thinking about the other side, yes, what about those people who, who've got who've taken it to the other extreme, so to speak. So I think that's a really great point to bring up, because there is that too. And look, you could have seen someone in that position where they were doing that and decided, I'm never doing that, right? Like that could be another reason why you don't want to compliment anybody, because, for instance, somebody in your family, you had a family member who was always doing that, and you'd be like, oh my God, like you have to calm it down, right? Like, so that could just be, look, whatever. I guess the point is, notice your relationship to complimenting. What are you comfortable with it? Do you withhold it? Are you super aggressive with it? Are you jealous about it? Like just kind of figure out what your relationship is with complimenting first, and then kind of, decide what parts to disseminate, or what parts to use from this conversation, like how to use it. And another good, I guess, avenue to go down is, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, but recognize how you receive compliments. And if you are able to compliment yourself, just to yourself, right? Can you say nice things about yourself? Because a lot of times, if you can't say them about yourself, you can't say them to other people. Not always, right? But again, think about you as the receiver of your own compliments. That should be in the mix there somewhere as well. And I don't know, do whatever you want with that, but I think you should be aware of how are you all, like when you talk to yourself, is it all criticism? Is it all, you could have done this better? Or if you go for a job interview, can you say, even if it didn't go that well, you did a good job. Jill, you did a good job. You tried your hardest. Like, you get my point. You all get my point.
I'm just making little notes as you're talking, so I don't forget some of the ideas that came up as I was listening to you. The overthinking it part, Jill, I think is so big. And that I feel like you've touched on that too. The overthinking it is like, well, they already know that. I would never compliment or I'm not going to release this compliment with this person in this situation because of course they already know that. You don't know that, right? Mm-hmm. And even if they do already know that, so what? Yeah. So what? Does that mean they don't deserve to hear it? What if they're having, a hard day or whatever? That could be just this tiny little bright spot. Again, that helps them find their present. The other thing is political correctness, right? I mean, oh my God, the way that literally the most innocent, sincere compliment can, in some instances, be completely like, what? Why would you say that? I'm just annoyed when somebody that has a beautiful dialect from another region, from however far back, is offended when somebody says, "Do I detect an accent? Are you from somewhere else?" The idea that would be offensive is just like, can we all just take an effing chill pill? I mean, seriously. Do you really think they're asking you that to be offensive or to ridicule you? Versus sincere curiosity, maybe they've lived a totally secluded life and they've never heard someone talk like you, right? Now, can it make someone insecure? Yes. And I know this from my own little weird story. I moved to Idaho from Minnesota. Idaho, by the way, is over by Washington and Oregon. It's not Iowa and it's not Ohio. Yeah, just FYI. Okay.
You don't know geography.
A lot of people don't know where Idaho is, and we're okay with that. Anyway, when I moved from Minnesota, right, I spoke like I was from Mars to these people in Idaho. And at that time, there weren't a lot of people moving in from, other places other than California. So I remember I had to read aloud in history class in ninth grade. And I sat towards the back, and I swear to God, at one point, the entire class was just looking at me like, just watching me talk. And I didn't realize it, but I was just like, and then I finished my portion of the paragraph, and I looked up and I'm like, and teacher, thank God, she said, Jill, you have a very interesting accent we're not accustomed to hearing. Sorry that we're paying too much attention to watching you talk, you know? And then, but it wasn't like, that's so cool. They were being ninth graders, right? They weren't being rude, but I wasn't like, I'm so offended, you know? Anyway, so I just, because I do that. I mean, my mom had a nurse. My mom was in the hospital, just got out yesterday anyway, it's got shit going on. And one of her nurses was from Haiti. And I just, oh my God, that Caribbean accent, I'm just like, ah. And I'm like, Marie, where are you from? And she was like, can you guess? And I said, I hear steel drums. She laughed and she said, Haiti. And I was like, oh, I love it. You know, anyway, so she was gracious. You know, we loved her accent. We loved it when Marie came in and took care of my mom. So anyway, I hope people just chill out on the political sensitivities and racial sensitivities about all these things, because I really feel like it's completely overblown and exaggerated.
I 100% agree. And just like as a side story on that, I was going to a party last night. It was for the Chinese New Year. And it was like the last night of Chinese New Year. And I was really super excited about this party. And my husband bought shirts. It was red and gold. I don't know if it's always red and gold, but it was, you know, red and gold was the theme. And he bought shirts. And as we're getting dressed, I'm like, can we wear these? Like, we don't know who's going to be at this party. So half the people may think it's great, but the other half may literally be offended for cultural appropriation, or who knows. And we had to call the host, and we had to ask if we could wear, you know, just like festive garb to the party. And
that's sweet though. That's thoughtful that you did that, right? Because you were thinking about it. I don't think you were overthinking it. You wanted everyone to enjoy themselves, right? So
yes, but I also didn't want to be a target of, you know, people who don't know me. You know, half the people would know me, but maybe half the people wouldn't. I really have no idea.
Lanklers.
So, you know, it's just one of those things. This has invaded our lives, I would say, and I hope, you know, it doesn't stop us from being able to say kind things to people. And are we always going to get it right? No, probably not, you know? And I think we're talking about really genuinely complimenting, mm-hmm. right? And that involves, I would say, almost a deeper awareness than the superficial complimenting, right? Like if an outfit that somebody's wearing really hits you, then I almost can't not say something. Mm-hmm. Like I find myself sometimes being like, I really love that. And then I'm like, gosh, I really love that. And then, I finally have to say something, mm-hmm. right? Like I almost can't keep it to myself. But I do feel like if you don't know how to, and this was what you were saying before, if you don't know how to start a conversation with someone, a superficial compliment might not be the inroad, right? You know, in that case, just talk about the weather, you know, or something like that. I think, I don't know, when I'm thinking compliments, sometimes people say things to me, and I'm sure they've say things to you that are not the things that people normally see or say. Mm-hmm. And that always feels like I feel closer to that person, you know, mm-hmm. for them, you know, sort of looking beside the, you know, whatever they could physically see, and then appreciating some quirks sometimes, or something that's just uniquely me, or, you know, that they've thought about it a little bit more and appreciate and think enough to say it. And it happens a lot. And I'm sure you get this too. Like when I write a blog, or, you know, we get feedback from the podcast, you know, and people are like very specific, you know, sometimes about like, you said something, you know, and it's just like, it was like a eureka moment, So it's like, and I always thank people for their time, the time that they took, not only to listen and to read, but to actively say something. Because so many people read and listen to our stuff who don't, and that's 100% fine, right? But then when somebody does, like, I know that it takes, and I read a lot of people and sees a lot of people's stuff, and I can't every time or don't, constantly say something either. But I really try to, when I'm thinking about it, to put that on paper. And I know from, being on the receiving end, how much it means, to say something like that. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I don't think compliments can ever come too late. I mean, your example of your kids writing notes to teachers that they may have had years ago, or, anything easy. If they're on social media, just reaching out saying, you were my teacher 3 years ago. I don't know if you remember me, but, that just meant so much to me. For any of us that care about what we do and are trying to do a good job in our professions, or we care about, the outfits that we wear out in the world or something like that, or anything where there's a kind of I noticed this and I like that, then I just feel like there's so much to gain personally and mutually in those experiences.
I agree. And this can be done, as like a a little game you can play with yourself, to see where you are on the complimenting scale. If it's something that you want to, uptick on, and see how it changes your life or how it changes you, make a notebook out of it, take a tally of what you're doing. Oh, 10 compliments today, or whatever it is. Because I do feel that once you get into a groove of doing this, it's you're priming your brain to look for what's right. And that is a fundamental, and I'll call it a global shift, right? Especially if you're someone who is more cynical, who's having a lot of trouble with the political and social, economic, cultural landscape right now. There's a lot of stuff impinging on us generally, which we may not even realize that we're kind of souring a little bit, or getting a little more misanthropic, or a little more cynical, or, a little less, a little glass half empty, without us really noticing it. And this complimenting thing could be a good, sort of backstop to some of those things. If you're a news watcher, you should probably be practicing compliments, like we have to offset some of this, just swirling, I'm going to call it negativity, really, for lack of a better word. Right. But word. It's just this general, like, malaise, and this is really being able to shift to look for what's right and have that more as the default. I mean, that literally changes your life. It changes everything, right? It changes everything.
It does change everything. It changes it for ourselves, and it may make a positive, change for the other person as well. I do want to address those that are known to be critical, those that are known to be judgmental, and I look at all of them as idealists. Those that have a criticism ready to go, or they have a constant stream of judgments and, improvements that another person could make, or what's wrong with something, those are idealists. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I just want to take a breath, because those individuals, I think they misunderstand themselves a lot. I think they are very hard on themselves, and it might be confusing because they don't understand possibly why they are so, they could, if they really worked at it, try to find something positive about a certain situation or a certain person. But their first go-to is, they would really look better if they did this, or this experience would be better had they planned it and implemented it that way. Those individuals have a gift for idealism and perfectionism that a lot of individuals in society do not have. And it is a hard row to hoe, right? Because they're constantly managing And I hope those individuals that have that have some role in their lives where they can just be that, be that perfectionistic individual, right? Whether it's like Anna Wintour, Vogue and all the different, fashion industry roles that she's played. Is she an idealistic? Oh my God. Yeah, she's an idealist, right? And an artistic eye. And is she complicated and unique in a whole bunch of other ways? Oh, normally we are. Normally idealists are very complicated individuals that can be eccentric and have very unusual proclivities and those sorts of things, which doesn't have to mean it's bad. It's just a lot. Most people can't handle someone like that. They're just like, I don't even understand you. And it's no one's job to understand you, but you, right? But what I want to say to those individuals is, I know, I get it. I know that you have things that you wish you could say, or you wish someone would ask you to help them be even better at being them, or make the party even better, or whatever it is. It has another level of up that you have advice about. I get that. But when you give a compliment, it is so much different than when anybody else gives a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if the more they know you, the more it's like, wait, what did you just say? Did you just say that you enjoyed my dinner party? Right? I mean, it's just like, oh, let me freeze for a second, because they know that there's probably 10 gazillion things that you would have done differently, or they could have done better. They know that you have that ability, and still you took the time, you offered your energy in something that you sincerely appreciated that they did well.
Look, I think that that's a really, it's an important point. When you're a perfectionist, right, you're looking for what's wrong. Okay. It's the exact opposite.
By design.
The exact opposite of this conversation. And I think the issue with that is, and you can go back to some of our previous episodes, but this fixing, right? Because that's part of the perfectionism, is like, I'm always looking for something to fix, right? I'm always looking for something to better. I'm not sure. And as a reformed fixer, I can honestly say a reformed perfectionist, a reformed fixer, all of that, and even a reformed having to be right person. I think maybe I'm still working on that one. But all of those things, I am much happier now, right? Not looking at the world through that lens. So even if that is your gift, and I do consider it a gift, and now I basically use it when I'm doing construction, right? Like, I will notice if things are off and that they're crooked and whatever. So I do still, anybody who's working on one of my construction projects, I feel super sorry for you. But otherwise, like, I try not to have that as the lens that takes over everything. And I am so much calmer. It's almost like when you're living in a chaos that you're trying to fix, the frenetic energy. It's just always, it's like, you're always like, have that exam hanging over your head, or that term paper hanging over your head. It never really leaves. But if you give up this whole idea of being that, the relief is palpable. It is. Right. So the antidote to that fixer, to that perfectionist, just try this. Just try not putting that roadblock in front of you and then having to compliment over it, because that would be not genuine, right? You're really starting with, there's nothing to fix here. Now what do I see? And you can just see the beauty as it is in its imperfect form, if that's the case. And then it won't be so hard, because you can't wait for perfection to compliment, because that's just not probably coming, or it would be very rare. So don't wait for perfection to compliment, don't wait till things are fixed or perfect or whatever. Just let her rip.
The other layer to this is, and you're right, we have done an episode on idealism and perfectionists and those types of folks. And I'm so glad we did that one. And I would recommend anyone that's vibing with this part of the conversation to go check that one out. Also, not just in addition to For those that are idealistic, not only complimenting when things are the ideal or meet your standards, but also don't wait for things to be perfect before you enjoy yourself in everything. Right? My office is not perfect. I love design. I'm not a trained designer. I know that my couch is too gray and I got it for cheap on Wayfair. It's not comfortable, but I knew I needed something back there. It was from another house. And I'm like, it does not go with the review computer on my walls, but it's good enough for now. So I've created another standard of Jill that's like, is it perfect? No. Could I do better? Yes. Am I still allowing myself to enjoy that I have a space to do my work? Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. I think that the flip side. So we're saying if you see something, say something in the compliment sphere. And because the reality is you're doing that for yourself anyway. You are thinking these thoughts, be mindful of them and share them. That's why you're thinking of them to begin with, right? So let's not bottle all that up. There is a mutual beneficial, experience to be had there, right? Should you choose it. But I also think that we have a propensity, right? Maybe because of school and the grading system, and we're almost prone or primed to seek compliments, and that's also a very problematic state, right? So we go to work and we're like, I need to hear from my boss that I'm doing okay. No, you don't. So the other part is, and I'm going to say they're absolutely separate. You're complimenting someone else is about what's going on in your head and your kindnesses that are just there to be, shared. This need for this feedback and compliments from other people is not real, and it is not necessary, and it will keep you in a sort of a unfulfilled state. So flip yourself up to being the giver of compliments, period and full stop. Do not focus on being the seeker of compliments or feedback. I mean, at certain points we're like, give me negative feedback, give me critical feedback, give me criticism. That stuff I'm espousing with this conversation, just, you don't need it. Don't be dependent on it. And yeah, just slice it off. You know how I like to do that, Jill.
I know. Yeah, your radical approach is so refreshing. I love it. So, and we've talked about these before, so I do want to be sensitive about repeating, but I'm okay with that. I am an Atta girl.
I'm good with it.
I am an Atta girl, Jill. I totally am. I remember graduating from college, and even when I got my master's degree, and I was already working in my chosen industry in business, there was a part of me going, how am I going to know I got an A? You know what I mean? How am I going to know? Right? Because I do like that feedback, and I was super competitive with myself. So in some of my classes, if I didn't get the high in the class, I was so mad at myself. And I was jokingly jealous with that, like, who did get the high? The professor was like, I'm not going to tell you who got the highest strand. That's up to you. And you probably already know. And I'm like, it was Cindy, wasn't it? And I'll go, Cindy, did you get the 98? And she go, yes, I did, Jill. And I'm like, damn it. And we joke about it, right? So I made fun and light out of it, but there was a part of my Jill going, you loser. Right. Anyway, so I hold myself to crazy standards. I own that. I don't actually want to change that part of my Jill. I like her, right? So I'm not trying to get rid of the problem solver, my Jill. And I hope that I love the problem solver in your Jill, because I've benefited from your Jill, the problem solver Jill, right? So I feel like, can we create a way where it's healthier or less toxic or less needy? Because I get it. For any of us that we do see compliments, we wish we had more compliments. We wish we had more A grades and thumbs up after we did something, especially if it was scary or whatever. I totally feel you guys. I love you. I get it. But you can make a joke out of it. You can make light of it. And you can also create an internal system, because we can be very needy. Right? We can be energetically exhausting for the people in our lives. We just can. So just like, okay, I don't want to be needy. I don't want to be energetically draining. And I can't expect the people in my life to chase me around, giving me, A's or D's or, whatever I earned that time. So just take a breath and create your own system of, is there something I could have done better that I will focus on next time? Create your own system of grading. Because if you are that much of a pleaser, you probably have really high standards, and you actually don't need to rely on another person to give you that grade. You can give yourself
Right.
that grade. And I hope you're giving yourself love, compassion, grace, and understanding, even when you don't meet your own grade. That's what
Yeah.
I hope, right?
Right.
So I make a joke out of it. I like compliments when I do the silliest things in my house, right? Anyone could empty the dishwasher, but I did it today. I am weird, right? So I'll say, I am the dishwasher. And everybody will laugh and go, good job, Mom. Good job, Jill. I'm just like,
I
thank you.
think there is a healthy
Very
look,
much.
there is a healthy way to do it, but if you're and and there's a funny way to do it. And I 100% agree with that. I think if it's holding you back, if not getting these things is increasing your angst and your insecurity and your and if it's making you sort of into that needy person or that nag that you don't want to be, that's not you. That's to those people I'm saying, trust me, it's not necessary. Don't focus on what's coming in, focus on what you're giving out.
Yes.
Right. And that's the way to neutralize that needy stance and to just, I don't know how it works, to be honest. I can just tell you that it does. So a lot of things that you and I espouse, we're kind of saying, just try it, because if you have the brain sort of analyze it, it's not going to do anything. It's like, no, I need compliments from other people. She doesn't know what she's talking about. This isn't, so we're saying, don't stick the brain on this. Just do the compliment thing and notice where you are today. And in 2 weeks, where you are. And look at some of your milestones for yourself. Are you happier? Are you lighter in your feet? Do you wake up easier? Do you get out of bed easier? Do you, smile more as you walk down the street? Like just whatever little noticings happen as a result of this, there will be some. If you take this on, there will be noticeable shifts in you. And funny enough, you may get a lot of compliments because you may just have a more approachable entity, expression or self that looks open to people. And then actually the compliments start coming in. I mean, this is a very reciprocal, reflexive, whatever the word is, experience. And you don't know it until you try it and start to say, what's different now?
This also brings up the topic of just negative groups and negative people. If you're listening to this and you feel like, oh my God, everybody I know is just, that's all we do is shit on people and shit on ourselves and shit on each other. And if you're drawn to this topic, I really encourage you to be very open to new relationships. You don't have to get rid of anybody in your life, but just see what it feels like to invite somebody to coffee or hang out with somebody or hang out in a place where there is more positivity, that is authentic, it is sincere. It's not for any sort of payback or points with God or anything like that. It's just, let's just allow ourselves to be the positive expression that we all can be and are. Well, we're not focusing on what's wrong with shit.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. I used to spend a lot of time, my humor when I was younger was very sarcastic, very, very sarcastic. And I was good at it. But I don't do that. And that is just not what I do. It was being funny, but it's not, I mean, today, frankly, would never fucking fly anyway, pardon my French, right? Because the littlest thing, people are very quick to, say something so it wouldn't, my sense of humor wouldn't work, today anyway. But I started to realize that it wasn't healthy, to be so sort of negatively oriented, even through humor and sarcasm. It just stopped feeling okay. And I just really gave it up. And to be honest, when people get a little snarky with me, I'm like, no, I don't appreciate it. It's quite funny. But I think I don't appreciate it, not because I care what they say so much, but if I could feel the negativity. it actually feels negative. So I guess I'm, bringing that up on the heels of what we were just talking about. It's like that negative skew. Some of these things are acceptable maybe, but they're still sending you, like humor should be acceptable, but it's still sending you in a negative direction. And that's for us to monitor where it's going. There's a light way to do things, but sarcasm is pretty biting, and it's really not it. So, again, my focus now, rather than trying to cut people down and be funny, or have people who that sort of negative sense appeals to, I definitely shifted up the way I operated, which requires you shift up some of your relationships as well. And so sometimes you have to break up with people until they come around again. I'm sure a lot of people broke up with me, but now, I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm different than I was. Let's put it that way. So I don't know.
We're all capable of change. I don't think it's a tangent. No, I do feel like it's related, because hurtful comments are the opposite of a compliment, and hurtful comments disguised as humor that did get a laugh and instinctual laugh by people, but it still hurt somebody. And those of us that are empaths are like, I know that was funny, but I'm also feeling bad for someone that you said about. I have a really hard time with, I know some parents that are funny and very negative and hurtful about their kids.
Yeah,
right? Even when they were little, right? Just, it's just when they were babies, and I was around them as, when they were a young mother, and they were just like, the baby is upset or crying or tired, and they're like, yep, you need a nap, always. So, just some trying to make it funny. And I'm just like, my baby needs compassion. Like, she does need a nap. Get her home, or relationships, marriages. It's exhausting for me as an energetic, sensitive, aware person, right? Energetic empath. I mean, when somebody's like, let's just say his name is Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan. And Jonathan's right there, right? Jonathan's he always makes us late, or he's always this, or he's always that. And he's just standing there. And I'm just like, I can't. I'm like, dude, girl, why are you like this? Or guy, why are you like this? And why are you like this with your guy? Right? Those connections, I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it, because it's, to me, just so sad. That love means being able to hurt the person that you're supposedly in love with the most. I'm just like, oh, gross.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I do feel like that's why we're trying to bring the brain back into your awareness. We're trying to bring the thoughts back into your awareness, these things that we accept and these behaviors that we accept as just normal or, compounded over time. Like, we can pull all that back, right? Everything, we don't have to continue down the road that we were traveling yesterday. And all of the episodes that we do are geared toward, let's see if we can jump the track. And we're trying to give you sort of the brain awareness and the brain hacks, if you will, to say, you know what? Why do I want this to be true? Why do I want to continue down this road? Why, to ask those sort of, wow questions, those brain breaking questions that, you bolt up and you're like, why did I never think about this before? Right? That's really what we're trying to do. And so compliments, if you just say, if you read the title and you're like, oh, compliments, I know what that is. And, you don't delve into the conversation, or you're going to miss it. And compliments is, yes, it's simple and incredibly complicated. There's so much more to it that I think we've teased out. This is and I don't want to understate it, this is a potentially really life-changing, perspective-changing, simple addition to your repertoire. What could be simpler? And it would be very interesting for people who are listening to note their resistance to it, or their criticisms of the things that we're saying, or, ways to dismiss the import that this could have. Mm-hmm. You and I think both are of the mind that the complicated shit comes from the brain. The simple stuff is the stuff that you and I are talking about. This is simple and life-changing, I think.
Deep impacts. Totally. I mean, and regarding the ability to change, somebody that is in kind of a rut or just a system of negativity or toxicity or whatever, where compliments feel like a weird thing to receive and a weird thing to give out. You are making a you every day.
Mm-hmm.
You can change that up every single day. You can make a new you in all the ways that really matter every effing day. So the idea that, well, that's just the way I am, that is such horseshit. And you're selling it to yourself at a really expensive cost.
Very. Every day is a new day. That is not a lie.
And it's not about the day. It's about you.
In every moment of every day, you can choose differently. And we tend to just choose what we chose 2 seconds ago. And that's the brain. That's the habit. That's the patterning. That's the, different day. That's the programming. That's what you and I are talking about ad nauseum. We're here to make inroads in that. There is no reason why this should be sort of set on autopilot and you not being able to break away from it.
This is a bit off topic. I'm going to warn people of this, but it is related to the topic of kind of in general what we're trying to do with this podcast. Jill and I have been in the self-help, psychology, consciousness, spirituality industries for more than 10 years, right? Jill for longer than I have. We know it's possible to capture your attention by using words that you've never heard of before, making up language. And the brain says, oh, this is new. A positive thought process, mindfulness. Yes, okay, I need that. We're intentionally using words your brain already knows. We recognize the risk we're playing with that the brain, as Jill was describing, can easily dismiss. I already know what a compliment is. There's nothing here new for me. But what if the way that you're using these powerful terms and concepts is not as deeply satisfying for you in being a more authentic, more sincere, more thoughtful, more soulful expression of who and what you can be on your best days, and recreating and continuously improving on that. Okay? So
I love that. And I think, it bears repeating also that communication, which is what we're talking about. When you give a compliment, there's a communion there, right? That happens. You sort of join the same frequency, for that moment. You really commune with that person. And really, to me, communication with the base word of communion in there is about taking two people and raising both of you. That's what communication should be. That's why we're talking about, why would you use communication, which is this tool that can uplift you both, and use it to bring people down? That's not the purpose of communication, in my opinion. So it's a coming together, and we're somehow using this great tool to separate. And so this is the inroad back to that communion. I offer you just something, words out of my mouth, and it lifts you and it lifts me. That's the purpose of communication. If you're not using communication in that way, that shit you can keep to yourself, but not the compliments.
Yeah. And you just said right there, I feel the ramifications in political division, racial division, cultural divisions, right? So wouldn't it be fascinating if something as seemingly simplistic as a compliment towards somebody that's on the opposing view of something that you care deeply about could help the communion versus continuously fostering division?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And that's where looking for what's right. And if you see something, say something. Yeah. Yes, maybe your first impulse of somebody who has a different ideology is to see what's wrong with the way they think. That's fine. Look deeper. Find something that you can connect on, even if it's their passion. I love your passion. I love your, forget what they're passionate about. I don't care. You stand for what you believe in. That's noble. I don't care what they believe in. I want to foster that person's sense of self, not what they think. It's a different way of looking at stuff. And yes, sometimes you have to look deeper, and sometimes you have to push away the brain's first impulse, which is to see what's wrong with that person. That's fine. That's the programming we all suffer from right now. But we can do better. We can shift that. Okay, I know I was looking for what's wrong. I saw it. Now we're going to move that off to the side. And now I'm going to keep looking. And I'm going to look with a different intention. And we can all do it. And it's so simple, and it doesn't hurt anyone. It really doesn't. I don't know.
Free upgrade.
Yeah.
Totally free and major free upgrade. I do this all the time with people that have a different voting record than I do, or a different political ideology than I do, a different belief system than I do. I'm always like, okay, so when I'm traveling to another part of the world that is predominantly of a faith that I don't have a lot of interaction with, I'm looking around, just really observing, going, that mother really loves her child. And in this moment, I don't care that she has a faith that my country, as predominantly Judeo-Christian, do not understand when I'm in Egypt, right? I see. And my heart just opens up. It's like, barring mental illness, severe mental illness, and a severe addiction, the majority of the rest of the humans really want what they think is best for their families, their children, and their loved ones. We all have that in common. And that is something to compliment. How we get there and what we think is like the best way to stay healthy and safe and happy and with the future, the brightest future possible. How we get there is all the prickly stuff. And that's where the division should be. That's totally fine. But it doesn't have to erase our humanistic connection.
Yeah, I agree.
And it started with a topic of compliments.
Compliments.
Wow. I'm very impressed with us.
Simple and profound. We just solved the world's problem.
Girl.
No, but seriously, try it out. It's super fun. It feels so much better than you would think. I would say in my book, giving a compliment definitely outranks receiving one, because it feels, I don't know, it just feels amazing. So I would say really, put this in your practice and see what happens and let us know. It's a wrap.
Let us know. Love you. Great job, Jill. I love your background. I love the blue grass cloth wallpaper. I love it. I love you. You look great in black. Love the earrings. Love your smile. Love your voice. I can go on for days. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast episode with two friends. If you liked it, thank you for wherever you're experiencing this. If there's a way to rank it, thumbs up, like it, all those things. It really helps for other individuals to find this, because we're new. We're new on this scene. That's true. And we receive compliments well. I'll say thank you very much. Even if I don't get to saying it, I'm thinking it. I love you. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.